Bao's BFY, Red Moxie's Red BB, and Hydro Animates HYB are the three defining series of the YBB community. For anybody new to my channel, the YBB community is a branch of the Cartoon Beatbox Battles community, with hundreds of members all centered around a fan-made series akin to Verbalace's Cartoon Beatbox Battles. While the YBB community started off as most members as young children with poorly made fan-made YBBs, a beatbox-style tournament with members of the YBB community going against each other, three members would go on to create three of the most big series in the entire community, often being regarded better than Verbalace's Cartoon Beatbox Battles. While the quality of that series went on a sharp decline, the quality of these fan shows have just increased. Now, I myself have been a member of the YBB community ever since it began, and I was one of the first members to not only create a YBB, but an FMCBB as well. A fan-made series even more similar to CBB, using fictional characters with similar qualities beatboxing against each other. I mean, hell, FMCBB literally stands for Fan-Made Cartoon Beatbox Battles. But three members of the community would create series that are regarded as the best work and most iconic series in the YBB community, growing to heights not even imaginable back in 2020. Bao, creator of the YBB BFY, standing for Bao's Funny YBB, was created on May 28, 2022, with BFY 1 Moxie vs FMT, and also stands as the most viewed BFY episode currently, with 9.5 thousand views at the time of recording. The least viewed episode is BFY 6 Penguin vs BA, with just short of 5,000 views at the time of recording. Red Moxie, creator of Red BB, released the first episode on March 8, 2022. Currently, the most viewed episode is Red BB 8, Animaniacs vs Ed and Nettie, with 24,000 views at the time of recording. The least viewed episode is Red BB 6, Rose Quartz vs Princess Bubblegum, with a little under 6,000 views. And lastly, Hydro Animates, creator and publisher of HYB, dropped episode 1 of HYB on Halloween Day 2020. The most viewed episode is HYB Loser Round Super Hatman 15 vs Javon, with a whopping 47,000 views. The least viewed episode of HYB is HYB Bonus Razord vs JTTV with 6.7 thousand views. It is important to note that both BFY and HYB are YBBs, while Red BB is an FMCBB. It is also important to note that while BFY and Red BB technically had older versions, I will not be considering them for the analysis of this video. They are not only not public, but it's only fair for me to look at their rebooted versions, which are the definitive versions. Now, this video is not the first time these three series have been compared to each other. On August 25th, 2023, a collaborative effort named Chicken Sandwich Day was the day from where 4 PM to 10 PM EST, a new episode of BFY, Red BB, and HYB would be released. But enough introduction. Are these series well deserving of the level of praise they receive from the YBB community? Well, I'll be going through each of these three series one by one and deciding if they're overrated or underrated. Or not. Before we analyze the strengths and flaws of BFY, first we have to understand what makes a YBB good in the first place. It comes down to three main categories that you must have to have an objectively good YBB, and then everything else is up to personal preference. Number 1, visual quality. How's the editing in the YBB? What about the animation? Is it good or bad? Is it consistently well edited or falls flat continuously? How's the animation quality when the show decides to have animated segments? All of these play a role in the overall quality of a YBB episode. If you have poor visual quality, it can leave people disengaged. Number 2, the writing. Most YBBs aim for humor, and if not, aim for an overarching story told alongside the episodes. These are not needed in any YBB, they're just the common practice nowadays. But if the writing is overall good, most of the jokes that try to be funny land, and if almost anyone can sit down and understand what's going on, you'll have good writing. And 3, the contestants and beatboxes themselves. Now, this is the hardest category to really judge because the quality of the contestants are completely out of the creator's control, and if a series goes on for multiple years, it's hard for the quality of the beatboxes to remain consistent considering people often change in quality as the series goes on. Whether you enjoy a beatbox or not is completely subjective, but if most performances are unanimously regarded as bad, then the main campaign of your show is kinda messed up. So let's see how BFY fares in these three categories. BFY has great editing and animation. Unlike Red BB and HYB, BFY is almost entirely a solo effort, meaning Bao and only Bao edits most of, if not the entire episode. On the off chance he does receive editing or animation help, it's up to quality or better quality than Bao himself. Bao is a great editor. He makes so many moments in BFY so visually engaging, and his great art ability ties into the great designs for the contestants of the series, the visual gags of the series, and the animation he will sometimes add. This might be over-exaggeration, but in my opinion, Bao is one of, if not the best editor in the entire YBB community. The little attention to details like how the renders move, drawing new facial expressions each time an emotion needs to be conveyed, size consistency, all of it is here in one great visual package. But how does BFY fare in terms of writing? The main plot of BFY is Bao, Exus1, and Badger, three adopted stepbrothers traversing through many different fictional worlds, meeting new contestants to beatbox against each other along the way. However, the writing is very hit or miss. A lot of the earlier episodes did have weak writing, oftentimes leaning on scream humor or dumb gags to fill up an episode's runtime, but as the series progressed, the writing did get better and better. A lot of the jokes surrounding the contestants were very easily understood by everyone and landed great. A lot of the visual gags would only amplify the jokes, and for a good while, BFY's writing remained great, because each episode would not only appeal to each contestant's interest, but the jokes that went along with them would land. However, slowly, the series would degrade in writing quality more and more as we inch towards it recently. BFY for the most part consisted of mainly inside jokes between Bao and friends, which really hurt the writing quality and overall enjoyment of the show for me. And I'm someone who's in Bao's friend group and understand almost all the jokes in the episodes. But at a certain point, once you start hearing all these jokes all the time in chat, and then hear it once again a month later in BFY, by the time it reaches BFY, the joke has not only ran its course, but audiences who don't understand the joke are left confused. The biggest offender of this is the most recent BFY episode, Welcome to Hell 1, Xylodon vs Anonymous Axolotl. This episode is almost entirely either misogynistic jokes or making fun of Hydro Animates and Wild Foxy's relationship. Look, dislike who you want to dislike, make fun of who you want to outside of your show, but once your show becomes so spiteful and filled with just unfunny gags only appealing to you and a select few others, Now, while yes, the writing for the most part was consistent for a good portion of BFY's episode count, I did have to point out the obvious decline in writing quality. The performances, however, are one of BFY's strong suits. Each performance in BFY is filled with so much personality, plays into the theme of the episode so well, even if not intentional, and at the time that they were released were often regarded as the contestants' best beatbox released. Each contestant, winner or loser, would put so much effort into their beatboxes, and pair that with great editing, and most BFY episodes left you satisfied with at least one performance. BFY is a great show, and for it mainly being a solo endeavor, it is crazy to me how it remained quality for so many episodes. And out of the 3 shows I'll be covering in this video, BFY across the board receives the least amount of views. So because of that, and the show's great visuals and performances, I'm rating BFY underrated. Okay, so the criteria on what makes an FMCB good is similar to a YBB, but slightly different. While good visuals, writing, and beatboxing still apply, you also have to carry the weight of making sure each of your characters not only fit their original personality, but create new engaging interactions between characters that have never interacted before. I won't be taking character impressions into consideration though, because it's admittedly hard to keep an accurate impression while also performing a beatbox, so I won't hold that against Moxie or any other VA. Right out the gate, the writing here is probably my favorite of the 3 shows. Each of the characters are written in such a way that you can get engaged in their little storylines, each joke lands and never fails to make me laugh, and for the most part, each character keeps their signature personality traits from whatever fictional series they derive from. And characters who don't really have a clear personality in the original games like Freddy Fazbear or Bendy are given unique traits that make Red BB have some originality. Not to mention the overarching story Moxie is setting up that not only ties into the main round but the loser round as well. Each character's personalities and unique traits also play into the themes of their performances. For example, Dexter's funny confidence being portrayed in the song he parodies, late 90s and early 2000s hip-hop, and in contrast, Jimmy Neutron's kind but motivated nature is shown in the white girl pop records he parodies time and time again. Speaking of the performances, both audio-wise and visually, they are some of the best performances in the entirety of the YBB community. Each performance has at least one masterfully animated segment, and the editing, for the most part, is up to par. Each character is so expressive with each frame of animation, and the concepts and ideas that go into the storyboarding of these animated segments lead to some really amazing animation. I do have one flaw though, and that's with some of the editing. The editing can be fairly inconsistent, oftentimes exported in lower resolution than the rest of the episode, or just having too many effects on screen at once that make it hard to focus on what's going on. It's not a huge deal as most of the editing is really good and very impressive considering the software is used, but it just kind of falls flat sometimes. Red BB is what every FMCBB that has came before it has paved the way for and has masterfully executed a formula that makes those same FMCBBs look trash in comparison. While it's very obvious I think Red BB is great, I'm clearly not the only person who believes so, as Red BB averages about double the amount of views that BFY receives, which is why I think Red BB is fairly rated. Also, BTD is pronounced Red BB, not Re-DBB.
7th episode of Re-DBB.
And lastly, HYB. HYB is probably the most controversial show I'll be covering in this video. Whether it's viewer upset or directorial issues within the production staff, HYB has had a very difficult time remaining consistent with its quality and staying focused. In terms of editing and animation, HYB is wildly inconsistent. Part of this is due to the fact that most episodes were in late 2020, early 2021, so high quality animation wasn't to be expected, and for the most part, it was excusable. But as the series went on, the visual quality was raised up to 11, with a whole staff of animators being brought onto the project. For the time, HYB had some of the best visual quality of any YBB community show, and it held that title for quite some time. Even by today's standards, a lot of the episode's animation still holds up, which is a huge plus because HYB is the only YBB, to my knowledge, to at least have more animation than editing, going above and beyond with not only having the beatboxes being close to fully animated, but the in-between dialogue as well. However, the animation and even editing did set a high bar, but it also raised the expectations for HYB, and Hydro just could not keep up. The animation team one by one left, and the show was getting too ambitious for Hydro to carry by themselves. Instead of focusing on the mainline episodes, the focus was often shifted to low quality bonuses, with messy editing and short runtimes, and left HYB with an inconsistent status. The animation and episode quality was on a sharp decline, and the beatboxes were not that much better. The benefit of having a YBB or FMCB be released so frequently, like BFY or Red BB, is most beatboxes are released shortly after they're completed. But with HYB, it can be up to an entire year before a finished beatbox is released, often being outdated by the time it releases and has the beatbox quality fall flat. And this is not to say any of the recent performances are bad. Hell, some of the performances from 2 years ago still hold up today, but just not to the quality of BFY and Red BB's performances. I have been fairly critical of HYB so far, so I will say that HYB, for the most part, shines in its writing. Heavy emphasis on, for the most part. HYB's inconsistency carries over to the writing as well, and oftentimes when Hydro is left to take a directorial approach on episode's writing, it falls flat. I will not get too into it, but if you know, you know. However, I do not think this is a problem with the main episodes, thankfully, as each episode does have a unique premise, fun writing, and visual gags that only amplify the jokes here. Especially some of the unique locations in the episodes some episodes take place in, like HYB 13, its Legacy vs. Ray Zord, taking place on the roof, or HYB 17, Mr. Fist vs. J-Brick, taking place in an airport, airplane, and even falling from the sky towards the end of the episode. I'd argue situations like these are better than BFY's constant changing of locations each episode, because when done there, it's mainly made to appeal to each contestant's wants. HYB will always have the change in scenery have an explanation within the episodes instead of kaboom.
Yes, Badger. Go.
But ultimately, HYB's insanely inconsistent upload schedule, lack of focus, and failure to uphold each episode to the same standard as the last kills any engagement of the show for me. Unfortunately, I'll be giving HYB the status of overrated. When writing this video, I want it to be as fair as possible to each of the series and their creators. Each episode of these 3 series have clear passion and hard work put into them, but ultimately it's the execution that matters most. Comment down below which of these 3 series are your favorite, and if you aren't already familiar with them, I'll leave a channel link in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.